Voter suppression refers to laws, regulations, or other practices that serve primarily to make it more difficult or impossible for a certain group of people to vote. Some voter suppression policies work by explicitly banning certain groups from voting, such as felons or women. More common today, though, are laws that make it more difficult to vote but don't explicitly ban people from voting. Often, when voter suppression laws are passed, those passing them try to claim they're not voter suppression and that they're needed changes to election law. And sometimes changes to voting laws are needed and are not voter suppression. An easy way to tell if something is voter suppression is to ask 3 questions about the law or policy. Is the policy likely to make it more difficult to vote in any way? Was there a real issue being addressed by the law, such as documented cases of voter fraud? And if the law is addressing a real issue, was there a genuine effort to minimize how disruptive the law is to people trying to vote? If the law makes it more difficult to vote, and there's no documented issue it's actually trying to address, then it's voter suppression. Similarly, if the law makes it more difficult to vote, and there is a real issue it's addressing, but there was no effort to minimize how disruptive these changes would be to people trying to vote, then it's still voter suppression. If you look at voter ID laws, for example, they could not be voter suppression if the jurisdiction enacting them had significant evidence of in-person voter fraud, and if the jurisdiction implementing them made voter ID free and accessible to people trying to vote, and also provided resources to educate the public about this change ahead of the next election. If these factors are not all present, though, then it's likely voter fraud. This is the case in most U.S. states that have implemented voter ID laws, where there is no evidence of substantial in-person voter fraud.